The Arkansas River begins as snowfall in the mountains. In the spring, the sun warms the air and melts the snow. Tunnels divert water from the western slope. Trickling streams become flowing rivers. After a steep descent from the Rockies, the Arkansas River leaves the mountains near Canyon City and becomes a typical prairie river as it meanders to Kansas. Along the way, it provides water for rafting, fishing, agriculture, industry, and for people. As the Arkansas winds its way through southeastern Colorado on its journey to the Mississippi, it passes through Rocky Ford, Colorado, a farming community 50 miles east of Pueblo. Well known for the famous Rocky Ford cantaloupe, the town is also the site of Aurora's Arkansas Valley Range project, started as a result of the town's unique relationship to a city 150 miles away. Begun in 1987 by the city of Aurora, a community of 300,000 on Colorado's Front Range, the Arkansas Valley Range project established a working relationship with Rocky Ford area farmers. Aurora receives about 1/4 of its drinking water supplies from water sales and leases in the Rocky Ford area. The water reaches Aurora through a series of exchanges that allow deliveries to the South Platte River Basin at the Otero pump station located near Buena Vista.
Aurora's involvement in the Arkansas Valley began in 1988 with the purchase of water rights in the Colorado Canal system and then later within the Rocky Ford ditch system. These water rights are purchased and transferred and exchanged up to Otero pump station where they're pumped over the mountain into the South Platte drainage to supply the municipal needs of the city.
As farmers continue to struggle with the risky proposition of making a living in agriculture, one thing has become certain. The cities along Colorado's Front Range are willing to purchase their water rights or to establish leases that allow deliveries to the cities in times of severe drought. Growing cities like Colorado Springs, Pueblo, and Aurora all have worked with agricultural water users on the Arkansas River Basin. These cities are struggling too as they see increasing populations and a state economy that is ever more reliant on urban industries. Traditional mountain water sources have routinely been developed by cities and farmers alike. Very little water, however, remains in the mountains to be developed to meet future needs. What does remain is expensive and requires extensive investments in reservoirs, pipelines, and facilities to get the water to the future users in cities along the Front Range. Agriculture, which is typically used 90% of Colorado's water, is often seen as a part of the long-term solution. If willing sellers can be found, the cities are ready buyers of new water sources, while they are also conserving and reclaiming water they currently have available. In Rocky Ford, a group of farmers approached Aurora with the thought of selling their Rocky Ford ditch water rights to the city. In the late 1990s, 50 of these farmers did just that. Now, each year, Aurora receives nearly 1.6 billion gallons of water from the sale. But that water had been used to irrigate 2,800 acres of farmland. All parties to the sale wanted to ensure that the land would not be allowed to dry up and become a vast expanse of unwanted barren land. So the city of Aurora negotiated an alternative approach. Before Aurora could receive a drop of water, the city established the land in native grasses that could survive without irrigation.
With the purchase of the water rights, Aurora had the responsibility of revegetation on the lands that were formerly irrigated with the water that was being purchased. And its primary function was to revegetate all those irrigated lands. The revegetation is the planting of the native grasses on the lands that were formerly irrigated. Essentially what we're doing is reestablishing the lands back to the prairie it was before it was broken out for irrigated agriculture.
Once revegetated, the land can be productive again. Cattle graze on it, and hunters can use the fields to reap the rewards of renewed cover for wildlife. The land has found new life, not as irrigated fields, but as conserved lands that are a positive part of this farming community. In fact, one of the farmers in the Rocky Ford ditch sale has turned his fields into ground cover for pheasants and quail and is raising the birds for release for hunters.
We look at it as a tremendous opportunity to create something that would last into the future. I love hunting, love birds, love wildlife, and like to farm, so this is kind of the best of all worlds.
While revegetation efforts can work well for landowners, there is still significant concern about the future of farming in communities like Rocky Ford that sell their water to cities. A solution that has been developed by Aurora, working with local farmers, would be one in which the farmer could sell his water but continue to farm different crops. In 2004, Aurora began an innovative program in Rocky Ford that is the first major project of its kind in Colorado. The city paid for the installation of drip and pivot irrigation systems on farmland that was included in the Rocky Ford Ditch 2 sale. Farmers that wanted to continue farming the land benefited by receiving a significant city investment to their irrigation systems on those lands. The city paid up to $1,400 per acre to install drip irrigation, plus an allowance that the farmer could use to purchase supplemental water for his crop. In turn, the city could begin diverting their purchased water immediately, instead of waiting years for revegetation efforts to take hold. The drip irrigation systems allow increased yields of crops like onions, melon, corn, and tomatoes to be grown using significantly less water. One farmer who has worked with Aurora to install drip irrigation in his fields is Don Mameda of Mameda Farms.
We've had drip tape on our farms for 5 years. This opportunity came up with the city of Aurora. We've seen such an increase in yields and water savings that we thought it was a really good opportunity for us, and we're really fortunate that we're a part of this. The city of Aurora is real aggressive in thinking about the future and water development, and we've been real proud that we've been able to be a part, we hope, of some future water development with them.
Another way for farmers to continue working the land while providing water to Aurora is leasing water in severely dry years when there is doubt that available water supplies could adequately grow a crop. By early 2004, Aurora completed the largest water lease in state history when it negotiated with 124 farmers in the high-lying canal in Rocky Ford to lease water to Aurora for a 1-year period. Farmers are paid not to deliver whatever water is available to farmlands that are already suffering dry conditions. In return, the city receives water when it needs it most, during drought years, when snowfall has not been plentiful and reservoirs are lowered to levels that impact future water supplies and uses by boaters, fishermen, and others.
The majority of all of our shareholders tell me that it's a good thing. I had a couple of shareholders who did not lease that said, we're men enough to admit that we probably made a mistake, we should lease, and they hoped that there would be the possibility of leasing in the future.
Leasing provides an alternative to the permanent sale of water and allows the farmer to keep his water rights for future years. At the same time, farmers can supplement agricultural interests affected by the drought. Through this innovative approach, Aurora has been able to obtain water to fill its reservoirs in times of drought. The Arkansas River, meanwhile, will continue to be a major part of everyday life for those that live along it and those that benefit from it. Rocky Ford and Aurora are two different communities, but they have established a common bond that benefits urban and rural people living 150 miles apart. But they both rely on the successful relationships and the spirit of working together to find solutions that both communities can rely on.